Hello children. Now in today's session we'll be looking at improvement in crop yield as a topic. Okay, so when I say improving in the crop yield, now we have learned that if the land is less, okay, we can't keep on growing crops which are low yielding, okay, because the area is less, we'll get the yield also very less. But if the area is small and we use high yielding varieties of plants, the area can be increased, and then finally what will happen, we get a good yield. Okay, right? So area, when it is reduced and we use high yielding varieties that is scientifically made or scientifically developed, we get high yielding crops or high yielding products. Okay, now improvement in crop yield. Now if we have to improve the crop yield, we have to do the three main activities. Okay, three main activities. Now what are those three main activities? We'll look at it one by one as a topic. Now first thing is crop variety improvement. The second one is crop production improvement, and the third one is crop protection management. Okay, so these are the three main activities that a farmer or a scientist has to consider when he's trying to improve the crop yield. Okay, right? Now we'll look at the first one, crop variety improvement. Now crop variety improvement is done by selecting good varieties of crops. Okay, so obviously if you have to improve the crop, you have to select good varieties. Okay, then this is done by hybridization. Now hybridization is what? This is a term which is introduced to you. This is basically, hybridization is the crossing between genetically dissimilar plants to obtain crops having useful characteristics like disease resistance, good quality and high yield. Okay, so hybridization is what? It is basically crossing. Okay, right? So say for example, if this is a high yielding crop, okay, this is a high yielding crop. Okay, now the scientist will not have a problem with this because this is giving high production, but this crop is having a defect that it is not disease resistant. Okay, this crop can be attacked by many pests and which destroy the yield. So what he can do is he can select a plant which is disease resistant. Okay, and he can cross it with this. Okay, so when he crosses it, he makes sure that the production, the high yielding variety, that is intact, but there is an improvement in the disease resistance of the plant. Okay, and with this combination, what will happen? The yield of the crop will increase. Okay, say for example, if per hectare he is getting around 1 ton of gram, with this crossing he can get maybe 1.5 tons of yield or gram. Okay, right? So that is what the first step is in the crop variety improvement. Hybridization technique is done. Okay, so when they do that, they look at the characteristic of that particular plant, whether it is high yielding, not high yielding, or whether it is disease resistant, not disease resistant. Okay, and then what quality of product that the plant is giving. Though it is high yielding, the quality of the yield also should be very high. Okay, so that is what is being taken care of in the hybridization process. Okay, right? Or the hybridization technique. Okay, now hybridization may be intra-varietal. Okay, now between different varieties. Okay, so intervarietal, sorry, not intra, it is intervarietal, between different varieties it can be happening. Then interspecific, specific means between different species of same genus. Okay, so say for example, there are two different species of tomatoes, but the genus is the same. The genus of tomato is Lycopersicum. Okay, Lycopersicum is the genus name. So if they do interspecific, that means what? The genus is the same. Okay, right? Or intergeneric, between different genera, that is the kingdom is, or no, so the genera is changed. Okay, right? Okay, so I hope that you have understood this. Then moving on further, another way of improving crop variety is by introducing a gene to obtain desired characteristic. So if you want some characteristic that the plant has to express, say for example you have seen capsicum. Okay, now you majorly generally people have seen green capsicum. From my young age also I have seen green capsicum, but these days you have seen yellow capsicum, red capsicum as well. Okay, now that is basically what is done, interspecific. It is a interspecific, that is the genus is the same, but they have made some small changes in the gene. Now intergeneric means between different genera. Now this was done by a company in Bangalore called as Monsanto, okay, where they have developed something called as a BT brinjal. Okay, now BT brinjal is basically a disease resistant variety of brinjal, and also it is a high yielding variety. Okay, so they introduced a gene. Earlier brinjal used to get a lot of diseases, so that Monsanto lab worked on this and they developed something called as a BT brinjal, which is intergeneric. Okay, right? And another way of improving crop variety is by introducing a gene to obtain desired characteristic. This produces genetically modified crops. So if you need a plant to produce more flowers, okay, then this genetic method can be the gene for which is helpful in producing more flowers is activated even further through various scientific techniques. Okay, so that when that gene is activated, automatically the flowering of that particular plant will increase. So when the flowering of the particular plant will increase, that is what, that is a characteristic, that the desired characteristics that is required by us. Okay, this produces genetically modified crops. Okay, why genetically modified? Because we have modified a gene in such a way that the flower production is increased. Okay, right? Now next, moving on. Now crop variety improvement is done for the following. Okay, now crop variety improvement is done for the following. Now why is it that the crop variety improvement is done? That is what we are going to look at. Okay, now first thing that the crop variety improvement is done is to get higher yield. This is no doubt, you can just print in your brain that any crop improvement technique is done to increase the yield. Okay, now to increase the productivity crop per acre, that is simply you can just write this way: per acre the crop productivity has to increase. Okay, and then next one is biotic and abiotic resistance. Now what is this biotic and abiotic resistance? To increase the resistance of crops to biotic factors like insects, disease, etc., and abiotic factors like drought, salinity, heat, cold, etc. So what is this resistance? Biotic resistance means the plant should be resistant to biological agents like insects and diseases which are caused by microorganisms. Okay, and abiotic factors means what? That is during less availability of water, and if the soil has more salt content in it, the conditions in the atmosphere are very high, that is the heat of the atmosphere is very high, and or the atmosphere is very cold. Okay, so by using crop variety improvement techniques, okay, we can get this abiotic and biotic and abiotic resistance in the plants. Okay, then the third one is change in maturity duration. Now what is this maturity duration? To reduce the duration between sowing and harvesting. Now as we have discussed earlier, Kharif is in that particular season, Kharif season, it is done from June to October. Okay, now this crop improving variety technique is between change and maturity duration. What we do here to reduce the duration between sowing and harvesting. So if in the Kharif crop, if it is done from June to October, now if this technique is improved, if this technique is used here, the sowing time and the harvesting time will maybe reduce by 1 month. So September, and we can get the crop. So that is why they do change in the maturity duration. So to reduce the duration between sowing and harvesting, so that the farmers can grow multiple crops during the year. So that is very, very important. So the farmers should benefit finally. And in turn, we have to benefit. So that is what is required here. Okay, right? Now, next one, wider adaptability. Now, you have seen that abiotic resistance. Okay, now, if we are using crop variety improvement techniques, we get wider adaptability. That means different types of climatic conditions, whether the soil is more saline or the condition of the atmosphere is heat or it is cold, that one particular plant can grow in all the different climatic conditions which we are actually giving them. Okay, right? So that is why crop variety improvement is done, and it is very, very important for us. Then you have desirable agronomic characters. Now, characters like tallness and more branching are useful for fodder crops, and dwarfness, shortness is desirable for cereal crops. Now, okay, cereal crops you people already have seen. Okay, now what are they? Can we just go back and see what are those cereal crops which we have discussed earlier? Cereal crops are like rice, wheat, maize, millet, sorghum, etc. These are basically the cereal crops. Now, if the height of the rice crop is reduced, okay, it will be easier to harvest. Okay, the stalks of the rice will be smaller. Okay, and we will get more yield in that particular stalk of the rice. Okay, right? Now, or you might have seen tallness. So say for example, for fodder there are different plants used, like balsam. Balsam is used for fodder. Now the plant has to be very, very tall. It is basically very shorter, but because of the variety improvement techniques, like say hybridization technique, the height of the plant was increased. So because of that, what happened? The one plant can serve, because it is tall, it will give more nutrients to that particular cattle, and we don't require in huge quantity. Okay, so that is the usefulness of desirable ergonomic characteristics. Now you might have seen, generally mango trees are very, very big. Okay, but because of some genetic modifications made, the trees are shorter. Okay, and the fruit bearing capacity of that particular short tree is more. Okay, now that is basically because, why did we do that? Because going up a tree and plucking those mangoes is difficult, is one way. Okay, second thing is the people who go up the tree are not easily available. That is one more thing. Then the other thing can be, if they are short and giving high yield, they don't have to climb up, they can just pluck it with their bare hands, and they also can look at the quality of the fruit. Okay, because it is easily seen. Okay, so that is one more requirement that people have done. So we have seen shorter mango trees as well. People might have seen those shorter mango trees in the farms. Okay, so these are basically desirable ergonomic characters. Okay, right? So these are the following techniques which are used. I'll just show you once again to why crop variety improvement is done. It is for increasing yield, then increasing biotic and abiotic resistance, then change in the maturity duration, then wider adaptability, then desirable ergonomic characters. Okay, so these are the techniques which are used in the first one, which is the crop variety improvement. And in the next session, we will be looking at crop production improvement. Okay, so I hope you have understood this session. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.